No one spoke. I could only hear breathing. After a long pause, Emily said, "Kevin, I don't think I can hold on much longer." I asked what happened. She said that night she worked overtime until nearly midnight. When she got out of the elevator, she noticed the floor was wet. From the elevator door to her 903 entrance, there was a dense trail of footprints, neatly stamped on the tiles. Not adult feet, but children's very small, the size of a toddler, just learning to walk. The footprints were wet and carried a muddy, river bottom smell. They circled 3 times in front of her door, then vanished. She crouched down to look. There was no moisture on the tiles. Those prints weren't made by stepping on them. They'd seeped up from within the tile's grain and surfaced on their own. I said, "Call the police." She said she did. The police came, knocked on 904, no answer. They pried the door open. Inside 904, there was nothing. The living room was empty, the bedroom empty, the kitchen and bathroom also empty. But in the innermost room, there was a very tall wardrobe. Emily said it covered an entire wall, with sliding doors and frosted glass. The police shined a flashlight onto the frosted glass, but the other side was dark, nothing visible. A young officer stepped up and pulled one of the sliding doors, only a crack, then he stopped. Emily said his movement was sudden, as if he'd seen something he couldn't comprehend. The older officer next to him asked what was wrong, but he didn't answer and pushed the door open a bit wider. Emily was standing at the room entrance, so from her angle she couldn't see inside the wardrobe, but she could see the young officer's face under the white glow of the police flashlight. All the color drained from his skin within seconds. The older officer asked Emily to step out of the room and wait in the corridor. She heard hushed murmurs from inside. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was strange, not the usual case discussion tone. It was something she'd never heard from adults before. Uncertain, low, agitated arguing. After a while, the officers came out. Their faces all wore the same expression, not fear, but confusion. One of them said to Emily, "Don't stay in 903 tonight. Go to a friend's place or a hotel." Emily asked what was inside the wardrobe. The officer opened his mouth but only said, "We're still looking into this. We can't disclose anything for now." Later Emily told me that, while she was waiting in the corridor, she peeked into 904. One officer had pulled open the bottom drawer of the wardrobe. The drawer held no clothes. Instead, it was filled with a layer of gray-brown things, gleaming faintly under the light. At first she thought it was old cotton wadding, but cotton wouldn't have arranged like that. Each clump of gray-brown stuff held a shape, some like hands, some like feet, some curled up, some stretched out, as if something had once lived in there and shed its outer shell. What made her skin crawl was that on top of the uppermost shell, she saw a tuft of black hair, long, with split ends, as if it had grown naturally. After the police sealed off the scene, Emily called me from beside the police car. Downstairs, her voice was trembling badly as she told me the whole thing in fragments. She said, "Kevin, how could those shit things have hair? How could they have nails?" I told her not to think about that now, to go to a hotel, and that I was on my way. When I got to the hotel, Emily was curled up on the lobby sofa, hugging her knees, staring blankly at the coffee table. In front of her, a cup of hot cocoa sat there, already cold. The first thing she said when she saw me was, "What does that thing in the wardrobe have to do with me?" "Why me?" I said. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the previous tenant. Or maybe it had nothing to do with her at all. That wardrobe was just problematic. Emily shook her head and said there was something she hadn't told me. On the third night after moving into 903, she'd had a dream. In the dream, she was standing in a very dark room, and something was dripping from above onto her head. She reached up and touched at a layer of fuzzy stuff. Then she realized it wasn't dripping from above. She herself was trapped in a narrow space, surrounded by wood and boards. Outside the boards, something was breathing. Then that thing spoke. The voice seeped through the cracks in the wood. thin and scratchy, like fingernails on glass. It said, "When are you coming in?" Emily said that when she woke up from that dream, she found 5 white gouge marks on the wall from her fingers. She was sure her nails had been clean before she fell asleep, but when she woke up, her nail beds were packed with wood shavings. Yet, her 903-bedroom walls were concrete. Where had the wood come from? At that point, Emily should have moved out immediately, but she didn't. Not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. Her company was in the middle of a major pitch for a project, and she was the lead planner. She ended up sleeping on the floor of the company meeting room for 3 straight days. By the time the pitch was over, and she returned to Jindal Garden, the police tape on 904 was still there, but the property management told her something else. A grey-haired old lady had come to their office, asking when the tape in the corridor would be removed. The staff asked which unit she was from, and she said 904. The property people showed Emily the surveillance footage. In the video, an old woman stood at the door of the management office, white hair, slightly hunched back, holding a plastic bag with a bunch of celery inside. The timestamp was 4:30 a.m. on the night Emily had stayed at the hotel. Emily recorded that surveillance clip on her phone and showed it to me. The image wasn't very clear, but the old woman's figure was exactly the same as the one Emily had met in the elevator. She stood at the management office door for about 2 minutes, but the person on duty was sleeping, too soundly to hear the knock, so she turned and walked away, not toward the elevators, but toward the fire escape. I said, "Why did she get celery at 4:30 in the morning to knock on the property office door?" Emily didn't answer. Instead, she opened her phone gallery and scrolled back a long way to a photo. A picture of the floor outside 903, with a bunch of celery lying on it. She said that was the second time the old lady had left it. She'd only noticed it that morning when she stepped on a celery leaf on her way out. She picked up the celery and turned it over. The roots were caked with dirt, and the color of that dirt matched exactly the smell of earth in her dream. The last time Emily went to 904 was with me. It was a Saturday afternoon. We pasted the property management for a good while before they finally gave us the key. When we pushed open 904's door, a cold draft rushed out, not from air conditioning, but the stale air of a room that had been sealed for a long time, mixed with a dampness that might or might not have been mildew. In the innermost room, the wardrobe was still there, sliding doors, frosted glass, just as Emily had described. We stood in front of it. Emily's hand hovered over the door handle, and she hesitated for a long time. I asked what was wrong. She said she was unsure if the door had been fully closed by the police last time. I glanced through the gap behind the frosted glass. I could vaguely see the outlines of hanging clothes. It looked like an ordinary wardrobe, but when I looked closer, some outlines were long, some short, and some seemed suspended in mid-air with no support, not hanging, but standing. Then the left most outline moved, not downward, but sideways, swaying gently. There was no vibration. The floor wasn't shaking. Emily grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. She said, "The door is pushing outward." I looked down. The gap between the bottom of the door and the floor was abnormally dark. It wasn't just a lack of light. It was as if the light itself was being sucked into that space, as if that gap was swallowing the surrounding brightness. Then that black edge shifted outward. By an inch, Emily stumbled back several steps. It shook the sliding door hard, slamming it back into place. I don't know whether to be thankful that we were both wearing rubber gloves before putting them on. I'd secretly thought Emily was being overly dramatic. That night, I helped Emily pack all her belongings. She moved to a hotel near her office. I only said one thing to her: forget the deposit. Later, Emily changed jobs and moved to the Kuyang area. She blocked every number from kindergarten on her phone and deleted all the local rental WeChat groups. Day by day, life returned to normal. The new job and new apartment gradually pushed those memories down. at least on the surface. But about a year later, one day while cleaning out her phone memos, she came across an expired text message in her spam folder. The number was listed as belonging to the Garden Property Management, but the wording and tone didn't look like the usual notices. The message read, "Was the salary left by you? That cabinet is too small. Can you get a bigger one?" The timestamp was 3 months after Emily had deleted all contacts from Garden. She was sitting at her new desk in Kuyang, the air conditioning at 25°C, but she said her hand holding the cup began to shake uncontrollably. She tried calling back that property number. It was disconnected. The next day, still uneasy, she used her work phone to search for rental listings for Garden online. The screen showed only one photo of 904. She stared at that floor plan for a long time, zooming in out, backing out, coming back in. Then she noticed that in one of the photos, the sliding wardrobe door in the bedroom had a small frosted sticker on it, off-white, with a corner peeling up, printed with a cartoon little tiger. She recognized that sticker. It was the one she stuck quickly on her own door when she first moved into 903, peeled it off, and casually stuck it on the opposite wardrobe. But the upload date on that photo was just 2 months ago, after she moved out. The new tenants never stayed long. The comments under the photo read, "Families with elderly or children may want to consider the surrounding area first." Later, when we talked about it, we both agreed that the wardrobe had never really been empty. Someone had been living in it for a very long time, so long that they forgotten who they were. Every so often, they'd clear out their old shade shelves and stack them in the drawers or at the bottom of the wardrobe. The reason it was celery was because the smell of the human body mixed with the smell of soil. The only thing that came close straight to that high, muddy scent was celery root. The old lady with the plastic bag was using celery as a marker, marking people they'd taken notice of. And every time those celery leaves were caught on the surveillance camera at the entrance, they left behind blurry water stains, like freshly washed hands. I don't know if Emily still remembers that number. One time, when we'd had a few drinks, I looked at her phone. The contact was saved as an answer, and underneath it was a red text message. The message contained only one MMS photo, too dark to make out, but I recognized the background, a crack in the ceiling. That was the master bedroom of her new apartment. Alright, that's the end of today's story. If you're re-renting a place and you notice a bunch of vegetables mysteriously appearing outside your neighbor's door, don't think it's irrelevant. Move out as soon as you can.